So yeah, just a little bit about myself. I've been in this business more than 20 years. I've worked on a lot of different types of projects in various roles. What I've found interesting in my career is that I've never really been pinned to one particular role. Sometimes I've sat in IT, sometimes I've sat in engineering or project management because I genuinely believe people were never quite sure what to do with me. Um, I probably started working in what we know as BIM back in 2002 on pharmaceutical plants and then semiconductor plants. And back then, the tools were really, really good, but really expensive and really difficult to use. So, I became heavily involved when we started seeing BIM and digital move into more aspects of what we do. So speaking of what we do in JACOBS, so a big part of JACOBS culture would be we have a culture of caring. And it doesn't matter whether you're on a building site or in an office or even at home, as many of us have been for the last 19 months now. One of the initiatives we have is called 1 Million Lives. So I encourage anyone to click on the QR code there, which interestingly, QR codes have become very, very popular in the last 20 months. Actually invented in, I think, 1994 by Denso for manufacturing. But what this brings you to is JACOBS has set up a positive mental health and well-being site where you can take a short check-in or a long check-in to see how you're doing. The information is not shared with anyone except yourself, but we want to eventually touch, at least 1 million people in the world, because mental health is important, especially in these times. So a big part of what JACOBS is doing, we're transforming as a company. Many people, if you've heard of us before, would think that we were kind of a, architectural AEC firm, but we are transforming into a solutions provider. So that's end-to-end solutions for all kinds of projects. And as part of that, we have these kind of statements where we're challenging today because we want to join forces, putting our knowledge and imagination together to reinvent the way we solve problems and shape the next generation of innovative solutions. And then we want to reinvent tomorrow. And what we're saying there is that we want to work on solutions for our clients to have open and inclusive cultures we create for our people and for their people, and form a positive difference in our communities, no matter where we work in the world. So let's talk about digital transformation. So I thought this would be interesting to show. So what you're seeing here is from Jurassic Park, 1994 now, 28 years ago. I'm really showing my age. And this is basically a movement test by Phil Tippett Studios. And this was how you're actually going to show the dinosaurs mostly in the movie, apart from the full-scale puppets and such. There was a couple of computer guys in the CGI department, and they thought that they could really, do something new. So in the background and without authorization, they went and created a test, just animating a skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex walk. Eventually, they showed this to Steven Spielberg, and he authorized them to do a full proper test, and that's what you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen now. The point being that in the space of one movie, they changed the way movies are made forever. And that was 28 years ago. The struggle we have in our design and construction industry is that it seems to take hundreds of years for change to take place at times. We are getting there, but it's very, very slow. So what I'm showing this slide is, I'm sure many have seen it. The different aspects of industry, between Industry 1.0 and 1784, when mechanization and steam was introduced, Industry 2.0 with mass production, Henry Ford in the early 20th century, and Industry 3.0. Many of us are probably most familiar with consumer products and the drive down in cost of things like semiconductors and such. And then what we're facing now is Industry 4.0, where we're looking at tying together all those things in a cyber way with physical systems, IoT, and operational technology. And then we have a look at this study from 2015 at the digitization of the construction industry. And I believe it has improved, but I suspect we're still probably quite close to the bottom of this list, even if we are not in last place, because we believe the agricultural industry has moved up a few points. Probably the last 20 months has helped. It's been a big kick to many construction firms and design firms that they've had to take digital serious and really push for it, especially with most of their employees working from home. So when we talk about the challenges of digitization, these are some of the really big ones. The quantity of data can be a real issue. I'm not talking about in storage or anything else, because storage is cheap. Just that it's quite easy to make a lot of data. It's hard to make that data useful. And we need probably more on the design side to focus on what's really important for a particular phase. I've seen a lot of where we get clients and even sometimes our own teams are asking for things out of models that are maybe not appropriate to that stage of design or construction. Then we have information fragmentation, and we see this everywhere, even when we look at, if we have a central CDE or a place where we're hosting all of our models and that data is in one place, there's still a lot of fragmentation. So example, if we wanted to do computational fluid dynamics and something, okay, we can transfer a model from one form to another, but then we have to go offline and do that as a separate task and then integrate the results back in. There's no one system that does that. Not necessarily that there should be one system, but they should talk to each other better than you do. And then lastly, quality. And this is something I have seen cracked in the biopharm and semiconductor industry, where quality is absolutely the first thing that gets considered. So from the very first day you say, okay, I'm going to put a pump here, or I'm going to design an air handling unit, you assign that a number, you assign it something that gets, or a number that gets assigned to that from the beginning right through until when that's decommissioned. You do not see as much of that in the, say, buildings, urban planning, or water businesses. And then contracts. So contracts are still a big issue. I'd say particularly here in the Middle East, where we have a very a traditional look at contracts. So it's called design, bid, build. So that separates the tasks out. So it's quite difficult to do a lot of innovation on the design side when what you're creating will just be handed off to someone else to further create, say, a construction model and an actual construct and build. We definitely need in this industry for the contracts to change to allow us to be able to deliver better across projects, and not just for the construction phase, but the actual life cycle as well. And then we have time fragmentation. So often we have a lot of tasks going on at the same time that may not always fall neatly within one another, and we need to improve that massively to get everyone on the same page for people to understand the project. So the big issue we have, personally speaking, is people. We need people to work in new ways. We need our clients to think in new ways. We ultimately need a lot of contractors and then owner-operators to think in new ways as well. And often we find that someone wants something like an asset built or designed, they want it on a particular date, but because of those time constraints, or maybe that they have only worked on projects in a certain way, they always focus immediately on what's it going to cost. Can you tell me all the benefits? And even you have to find the right people, the visionaries in those client organizations to really understand those benefits. Because often if it's just the cost control people, they will say, well, actually, I don't really care about this. I just want to know, the capital expenditure. I don't care if you're going to simulate the life cycle of this plant. All I have to do to report to my boss is how much it's going to cost to build. So you need to find the right people to work on you on that journey. I'm just going to switch track a bit, just to digital twins. So this is something that many people will have probably heard of and seen even. And there's a number of different interpretations of what a digital twin is. This is an example from one of our projects, just on the kind of workflow and what's involved, where we needed to, this is for a rail network, create a digital twin of that rail network, both during design, but then also look at it for really the operational rail as well, and how that would fit in between the operation of the rail, the maintenance, and how that information would feed back. And I would say at the moment with digital twins, that is a big gap there is in the industry. For a company like us who designs, builds, and usually hands over, clients don't give us 5 years of operational data to work with. You don't get that fed back. And you're only, at the moment, you're only going to get that as we implement these digital twins, on real projects, that we can get that data fed back to us so that we can improve how we design and build in the first place, and also get more data on the sustainability side and performance of those assets. So this is kind of a graph of where we are with digital twin and maturity. So we're kind of meeting the requirements of today. On real projects, not to 6 months, we can implement some things that can help us in human decision making, and then within a year, within client organizations, we can help them to really understand the benefits of digital twins. And when I say client organizations, I'm thinking about clients who have multiple built assets, whether that's a railway, whether it's manufacturing plants, or water infrastructure. But ultimately, it's probably 4 to 10 years away for true digital twins where we get all that data fed back to us. At the moment, we have a number of clients in the water industry where we simulate water plants mathematically in a digital twin model. And we can do that at a very high level of certainty, at maybe between 5 to 20 second intervals. But we could only do that because this client really believed in it and gave us access to all of their data. And you can see the graph on the bottom here, where as the maturity of digital twins goes up, you go from analytics to actually foresight. And that's the ultimate goal, I believe. But there's lots more to do. So standards. Standards are really good, and we're seeing a lot of our clients, particularly here in the Middle East and the UK, where they're getting certified in ISO 19650, which is really, really good. But we need more than that to really drive this industry forward. We need government organizations to take it up. We need a lot more interoperability between data platforms and software. We still even have situations now where you can be working on one vendor's software and the data does not travel, or say the geometry travels, but the engineering data doesn't travel. And you have to find workarounds of that. For an example, we have a project where we're automating water shafts. And to do that, we've actually, instead of say creating a BIM model and then creating a structural analysis model, we're using one data source and creating those two things from the same set of data. Because we found that if we created a BIM model, then brought that into the structural analysis program, that we weren't getting everything we needed for the full structural analysis suite. We need a lot more integration. So we need to solve problems at the construction phase, at the design phase, before it gets to construction, to think about the usability of space, the usability of projects. Often there's not always time for that. Timescales at design are very compressed, but we need, I won't say more time, but we need a different look at how we really look at design to get the benefits, and more integration everywhere, really, so that it's easier for people to go in and look at data, whether they are a project controller or cost consultant, whatever their role is, that they can see the data that they want from the same source. And then people, we need to really focus on giving people better access to information. Over the past probably 20 years, we've seen a lot of career paths where people focus on being specialists in one area. So if they're a specialist in a design, in a design discipline, or construction, or project manager, often then they don't get the whole holistic view of design and construction projects. So I would say when we talk about digitization and BIM in particular, we find that the best people to work on those type of projects are the ones who have been on the site, who've had real site experience, that they can go back and sit in an office and design better. And then even people from owner and client operations who understand how facilities are used, and then they can feedback. And that's something we I won't say we forget, but we definitely need to remember that no matter what we design and build, in most cases, it's for people to use. So an example I give there is that sometimes we see people focusing, or I see people focusing on clash detections a lot. It's helpful, but what I'm really interested in, if somebody walks through a model and looks at how usable a space is, and if they can spot things that are out of place, or if they can spot things that they know that no contractor would ever build that way, or may not be useful for a maintenance person. And then the other thing that digitization brings is a lot of transparency. And I think sometimes this can frighten people, where all of a sudden everything good and bad is available to see. And that's not a bad thing. And anything that we can see on projects that digitization brings us is good in my mind, because you're going to sort out problems earlier rather than later on, where it's either more expensive during construction, or ultimately, a bad decision that's made that someone has to live with for 50 to 100 years lifespan of that asset. And then lastly, decision making. So we really want to get decision making done earlier. So to do that, we need to show better information earlier in the project. We need a better understanding of what stage that information is at, so that we don't go into situations where, when something is being built, let's say a stakeholder sees it and decides they don't like that, they want it built a different way, or a problem is discovered that again, is going to affect the usability of that asset. I didn't say lastly, but this is lastly. So just kind of to wrap up, we really need, I would say, more of a whole life cycle look at how we design, construct, and operate buildings. And for that, it's not just about the digital, about the people involved. We need a lot more feedback from people from all aspects of the construction industry, and how facilities are actually used to ultimately drive down the cost of design, construction, and then meet our carbon net zero targets going into the future. With that, thank you.